sure that the last one. Yeah, let's go for it. Yeah?
Right, Phil?
Come on, mate, don't fall down.
It's probably a hard hat. Shout out if you need help carrying anything. Because I just have a little camera.
I don't know which way we're going.
We're going right up to the top there.
Top?
Do you know where we're going all the way up? Or? All the way up. We just had to go over it.
We'd love to see it. Like literally, people, it's not a TV show. People go,
Alright, cheers, buddy.
Sure, we
Sure.
are.
I would have taken the wind option personally.
The windy yellow
Yeah.
rather than danger over my head.
You've got a colour bill?
Yes. Just roll up the stairs, turn right.
Has somebody taken photos for you of
We'd love to.
So have you got somebody that can have that?
Oh, you can boost that.
Where have you got?
You a sound check?
1, 2, 1, 2. You,
Got a line with the light.
do you want me to go?
Maybe, eh?
Come forward a bit, bring it back.
So I can try and take them all forward.
Bring it back a bit.
Back? No, you come forward and come back.
Let's just stand there.
It's great to be here with our Education Minister Erica Stanford and all of you today. We're obviously in a construction zone. We've had a great visit up to the top of this building, which has been remediated, and it's been fantastic to meet with some of the contractors that are doing that work, which has been brilliant. Look, last week, after 6 months of a growing economy, we received the news that growth went backwards in the second quarter of this year, the months from the start of April to the end of June. Although heavier than we would have liked, the fall was not unexpected because uncertainty around the impact of US tariffs had a significant impact on a small trading nation like ourselves. International factors clearly knocked confidence and curbed firms' and households' willingness to make investment decisions. However, it is important to remember that this period is behind us and we are close to being in the fourth quarter of this year, and there are signs that the economy is once again growing. Lower interest rates are filtering through the economy, first home buyers are back in the market, and the impact of tariffs have not been as disruptive as initially feared in April. We have reined in government spending to get inflation down and interest rates have followed. There are nearly $7 billion of infrastructure projects getting underway before Christmas, and that doesn't include the private sector projects. The outlook for most of our export sectors remains extremely positive, and the government's economic plan is the right one. All of that being said, we're a government, though, that listens, and where we can help accelerate economic growth further, we always will. For example, last week we announced a $70 million tourism package, including a major events fund, that will allow New Zealand to compete with Australian states like Queensland to host the top acts and events from around the world down under. Major events support local jobs and incomes in hospitality and retail sectors and beyond. Today, we're announcing a $413 million investment package that will bring forward a significant volume of maintenance work on school property to help boost the construction sector. This will mean more work for tradies, more work for electricians and plumbers, and many more workers around the country. And with that, I'll let Erica talk you through the details of the announcement.
Thank you. Well, can I just start by saying a huge thank you to Albany Junior High School for hosting us today, and for Kushla, the principal, who I know very well. This is my electorate, and also to all the students who came in today on the first day of their holidays to welcome us, and who have asked me to say that their Kiwi whānau house is the most important house. Can I just start by saying, look, every parent knows how important it is for their child to learn in a classroom that is warm, safe, dry and well maintained, and when those basics aren't in place, we know that achievement suffers. That's why well maintained classrooms are not a luxury. They are a must-have, and they are a foundation for a very strong education system. But for too long, maintenance has been ignored. Roofs have leaked, too many classrooms stayed cold, damp and mouldy. Schools were left waiting while costs escalated and promises went unfunded. So when I became the Minister, school property was in serious trouble. Hundreds of projects were promised but were not funded. Delivery was slow, there was no accountability and cost controls. And that's why one of my very first actions was to launch that very short, sharp ministerial inquiry into school property to expose the scale of the problem and to build a roadmap for reform. We acted very quickly to turn that around. A full value for money exercise was undertaken, projects were properly prioritised and delivery was massively sped up. We've moved to on-site manufacturing and repeatable designs, cutting out unnecessary frills that wasted taxpayer money, and in short, we've reformed the property system to restore discipline, transparency and accountability so that every single dollar goes further to deliver real results for students, parents and for schools. And that change is delivering real results. The cost of building a classroom when I became the Minister, as you know, was $1.2 million, and today it is $620,000, which means we can build twice as many classrooms for the same investment. And for the first time ever, delivery is actually being measured. In 24-25, 93% of projects were completed on time and 92% on budget. Now, under the previous government, these measures weren't even reported on. All of this discipline is why today we are in a position to make a major announcement on school property. This investment will upgrade and maintain classrooms in every single school across the country so that children are learning in warm, safe and dry environments. It'll help lift achievement by giving students and teachers the basic conditions they need to succeed. And importantly, it will give the construction sector a real boost, with tradies on site at every single school this summer, providing more certainty for contractors, more jobs in every single part of New Zealand, from the largest cities to the most rural and isolated parts of New Zealand. Today I can confirm a $413 million school property maintenance package to continue the turnaround in school property. So firstly, $58 million will provide a 50% top-up to every single school on their property maintenance grant for essential jobs like painting, washdowns, roof repairs, essential maintenance jobs over summer. The amounts will range between $5,000 and around $155,000, depending on the size of the school, the minimum being $5,000, so that the 203 very small schools will receive well more than their 50% top-up. $255 million will be invested into the Ngā Iti Kahurangi program, a very successful centrally run program, upgrading every single one of our 934 small, rural and isolated schools, which account for almost half of every school in New Zealand. It'll include vital infrastructure like walls, interiors, flooring, heating, and now also external maintenance as well. It's centralised, it's repeatable, and it is the future of school property, driving value for money and delivering for our communities. And I want to take this moment to thank Andrew and Jane from the Rural Schools Association, who have been advocating for their schools that led to some of these decisions. Thanks to increased investment in Budget 24 and Budget 25, school property can now allocate more funding to schools to deal with urgent and very essential property maintenance that they cannot afford. So an additional $100 million will be added to the supplementary 5YA, schools will know well what that is, pot over the next 5 years, which will fund an additional 45 school big projects each year. This is on top of the $250 million that's allocated each year. And what that means is that this year we will be contacting another 45 schools by the end of the year to tell them that they will have their urgent and essential property needs met that they can't afford. This is on top of the 270 who've already had their projects received this year. But here's the bottom line. By managing school property so much better, we're not only fixing classrooms faster, we're creating jobs in every community with tradies working, as I say, in every school this summer. This is responsible government in action, taking a very broken system, restoring discipline, delivering results, and that parents, teachers and communities can see. My message to parents is that there is a faster track to delivering warm, safe, dry classrooms for your children. And my message to schools is that we are getting more cash out the door more quickly for your important maintenance, repairs and upgrades to sort out the problems that you have to deal with every single day so that you can get delivering for your communities. The corner has been turned on school property. Backlogs are being cleared. Maintenance is being doubled down on. Value for money is delivering for more families and more schools. And this investment just isn't just about classrooms. As I said, it'll drive jobs and growth. A $413 million program of work means contracts for tradies, suppliers, manufacturers in every region of New Zealand. It'll stimulate local economies almost immediately, and it's being delivered through education. This is about responsible government, careful stewardship of taxpayer money, a relentless focus on delivery, and a commitment to making a real difference for families, schools and communities now and into the future. And that's the property story so far, and there is a lot more to come, I can tell you. I'll be making more announcements in the future. Thank you very much.
Hey, well listen, why don't we take any questions around the announcement first, and then we'll go to general questions of the day. So I'll let you go.
Yeah.
Lydia?
Minister, you said that this will benefit every school around the country. So can you guarantee that any school which has a drafty, cold or mouldy classroom will get an upgrade under your government?
What you'll see is we provide property maintenance upgrade funding every single year to schools. We're giving them an extra 50% on top of what they have already had to get on top of some of those problems. On top of that, as I already mentioned, there are almost 1,000 small, rural and isolated schools who are going to be fully upgraded. That's their internals, their flooring, their ceilings, their windows, outside, inside, everything. That reaches every single one. So those schools will get both their top-up maintenance and they'll get this. And then on top of that, there are all of those schools who need essential work. So every single school will get something. There will be some schools who've got significant problems that we won't be able to get to through this. But what I will say is that in the last budget, we put in $780 million into school maintenance funding and $100 million this year. When you add that up, It is twice as much as the previous government in 6 years because we are serious about maintaining and upgrading our schools.
There's only 58, not only, but there is $58 million of new money, but you know, in the scale of what construction is needed, is that going to be enough to pay for everything?
Well, if you look at this package, it is $413 million, a significant amount of it, $175 million, I am bringing forward. These problems are here today. We need them fixed today, so I'm bringing forward that $175 million so that we can get those small and rural and isolated schools upgraded as quickly as we possibly can. So it is a significant package. Some of it's new, some of it's being brought forward, and some of it was funded in Budget 24.
And that review that you undertook when you took over as Minister, there was about 100 school builds that were either put on ice or cancelled. Does this announcement allow you to revisit some of those builds?
When I became the Minister, there were 352 projects that were in varying degrees of promises, some seed funding, but there was no money to do any of them. We have worked our way through a lot of those. There are some that when we looked at the prioritisation, they didn't meet the bar. And instead of doing those, we've done other schools instead. So there are a huge number of those schools that we have got through and that we have delivered on, are fully funded. There are some that we won't be delivering on, but instead of those ones, we've chosen other schools that were a higher priority. But what that tells you is, under the previous regime, they weren't properly prioritising projects. And because we're able to get money out the door more quickly, we're delivering more quickly because we're doing off-site manufactured builds, we can get classrooms delivered very quickly rather than having to wait 5 years and then realising that, oh, the population's shifted and actually that school's now a higher priority. So everything in the ministry has completely transformed. We are on our foils and they're doing a really good job.
And sorry, so every single school is getting something from this announcement?
Every single school. And there will be some schools who are getting significant amounts. If you think about those small, rural and isolated schools, they're going to have the Ngā Iti Kahurangi program for their school, internal and external, and they will also be receiving their property maintenance upgrade. And they may well also, if they've got a really urgent problem that they can't afford, like a collapsing roof, they may well be funded as well. So,
as you mentioned, part of this boost is new money, but are you moving things around to make it seem bigger than it actually is?
No, I'm being really open and transparent with you. We are accelerating a whole lot of projects. I'm bringing forward $175 million worth of property maintenance money. We are using, obviously some of this is from Budget 24 that we're now able to deliver on. We announced it last year. Today it's going out the door. 45 schools will be now contacted before the end of the year and say, actually, you weren't going to be having your upgrades, but now we can because of the money we put in. And there's also this additional 58 million.
The other thing I would add is that, if you look at New Zealand government, we're one of the worst in the world in terms of our asset management. That's been quite well recognised for some time. What has happened in education is by having a dedicated property management group, you're actually seeing dedicated professional management, understanding the property needs and actually doing a better job of getting the cash out of the bureaucracy and out of Wellington, out to the front line into the schools. And that's what's really quite exciting. The work that Erica and the team and the ministry have done around lowering the cost of standard classroom builds from $1.2 to $620,000, great example of that. Getting on and actually realising there's money actually in the system, but actually if we pull that forward now, we can actually deliver it and get it out of the system and actually get it out to the place where actually we do have tradies busy, and most important, we get the classrooms delivered as we need to.
It's cheaper in the long run too.
And are there also fears around the economy? Is that part of this as well?
Well, it's one of the major things, as you've seen also with respect to the healthcare infrastructure as well, where we've got an average building age, I think, in health of about 47 years. Simeon Brown announced another $100 million package to get maintenance done. So, getting maintenance done and renewals done on big capital investment and big property portfolios is really important, because if you don't do it now, you end up just having to spend a lot more down the road, and being able to get ourselves organised and be a more efficient management of those assets and get the money out the door is really important. But it is very much designed to improve our hospital infrastructure, designed to improve our education infrastructure in this case, but also to actually create opportunities for tradies to work on these projects. And that's why the money coming in, as Erica's proposing, so that people over summer can actually be working on some of this maintenance, it's important.
Prime Minister, with the decline in construction jobs, are you sure there's enough tradies to keep up with this work?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we know it's been a very difficult time for the construction sector. That's a function of high inflation and high interest rates. Developments don't go go ahead when you've got high interest rates in the way that we've been experiencing in New Zealand. As interest rates are coming down, we're seeing, we've got $7 billion worth of infrastructure projects kicking off before Christmas, and including initiatives like this. That's all designed to actually make sure there is lots of activity and a good pipeline of work coming through to the sector, which has been through a really difficult and challenging times as we've gone through the economic cycle.
You're standing here in high vis in front of a danger sign. Is this you basically scrambling because you're under pressure on the economy?
No, not at all. We are just we've got the right economic plan, which is that we've lowered inflation, we've got on top of spending, we're lowering interest rates. You've seen the economy projected here with forecasters going through from here. Yes, we had a difficult Q2, we had growing before that, we're now growing again, we'll pick up more growth as we go through. But we're also a government that's going to be very sensible and actually do things that are consistent with our long-term economic plan, and that means where we see opportunities for us to speed it up with major events funding, with foreign buyers ban being repealed, with investment and maintenance around hospitals and around education assets, we're going to do that. That's just common sense. What we're not going to do is rink-a-dink cost of living payments to dead people like the last lot did. We're making sure that we're doing things that are sensible, that are driving economic activity as we go forward.
Education Minister, does this investment include walls for the classrooms that want to get rid of? For the schools that want to get rid of their open plan classrooms?
It may well do in some of these instances if the schools choose to use some of the property maintenance upgrade funding to do that. I will be making further announcements on that though in the future. At the moment we're just going through a process of working out where the need is, how many of them are there, who wants to have those remediated. I think as you would expect us to undertake a really good process, and that's what we're doing at the moment.
Prime Minister, I just had a question on recognition of Palestine.
Yeah, sure, and I'll come to that. Any other questions on the announcement, or we're all good? Okay, let's go.
What did you make of the UK, Canada and Australia recognising Palestine overnight?
Yeah, look, some of our friends have actually recognised Palestine, as you've seen, overnight. Not unexpected. We've been in constant conversation with them. Other friends of New Zealand haven't and won't be doing so. We'll make our own independent decision. That's the course of the decision we'll make towards the end of this week. And the Minister will announce that, obviously, as you know, in the UN later in the week.
Without David Seymour?
Sorry?
Can you make that decision without David Seymour's support?
Oh, we're leading a process, as we've been doing through our Cabinet, to make sure that we have a total government decision and a New Zealand decision, and that's important. There's a lot of, we've always said it's a when, not if. We've been very supportive of a two-state solution since 1947. But irrespective of what position we come to on state recognition, the real issue today is what's going on in that region. And what's happening is a terrorist organisation called Hamas is refusing to release hostages after a long time of holding them. Equally, we have Israel undertaking military action. It needs to do a better job of looking after civilians and making sure that it gets unfettered aid into there. So we're not pro-Palestine or pro-Israel, we're just pro-peace. And that's really what needs to happen. A ceasefire, more military action, causing huge humanitarian suffering is not the way forward for the region.
Cabinet has made a preliminary decision, and why have you not been able to communicate that to the public? We've seen the UK and Canada and Australia, they've been able to communicate to their public, send you sort of preliminary advice. Why aren't you able to do that?
Well, as I said a couple of weeks ago, they came with their full and final decision and announced that to the public as a fait accompli as to what their position actually is. What we've signalled to you transparently is that we're working our way through a process. We've had preliminary discussions. We want to continue to monitor the situation over the course of this week. We'll make a final cabinet decision at the end of this week, and then it will be announced publicly by Winston Peters in New York.
He's doing that in New York, which is on the other side of the world, and why shouldn't it be you who are communicating that to New Zealanders? You're making this decision on their behalf.
Well, we're communicating at UN Leaders Week. We've always said that. That's the logical place for us where we lay up each year our position around foreign affairs on a range of issues, including this, and so it'll be incorporated into the New Zealand statement at the UN.
But why not you at a podium?
Leaders don't always go to UN Leaders Week. It's often rotated, and it's often not able to get there every single event, every single year. So that's quite a normal thing. It's not abnormal that a foreign minister represents a country at the UN Leaders Week. But for us, we've got a pretty clear process. We've lined that out. We've been transparent about what we're doing. Irrespective of what we decide on state recognition, though, I just say to you, today, what's got to change? What's got to change is you've got to get to a ceasefire. You've got to be able to get Israel to back down. You've got to get Hamas to release hostages in order to stop the military action and also all the huge suffering that's taking place.
You had to have a conversation with David Seymour following some of his statements or comments about recognising Palestine. What did you say to him?
Oh, look, I talk to the leaders of our coalition parties all the time. I had a quick chat with David, but, the point is we've got one Minister of Foreign Affairs, it's Winston Peters. He's doing a great job of leading our cabinet through the decision making and all the considerations around state recognition, and he speaks for the government, and that's really important that he does that job. He's doing a great job at it.
This is essentially the second strike, though, isn't it? So he wrote that letter and then took that back, and Winston Peters made it, and then now he's spoken out of turn on Palestine. Is it 3 strikes and you're out, David Seymour, on foreign affairs?
Well, we're working in a 3-party coalition, and when we have, we want to make sure we've got accountable ministers talking to their portfolios, and it's important everyone respects those lanes. And we've got Winston Peters, as I said, who does a fantastic job representing New Zealand in our foreign policy, and he speaks for us as he works and leads our cabinet through that conversation.
So is David Seymour not respected this lane?
I just said to you, I spoke to David, Winston speaking for us on foreign affairs, and he's the one that's leading our cabinet through that position.
Was he comfortable with that?
Again, we've got a clear position. Winston Peters is our Minister of Foreign Affairs, and he'll announce our position on state recognition, as well as many other things around foreign policy this week.
Does New Zealand risk being out of sync with its final allies?
Well, no, as you see, 2 of the 3 as of yet haven't made a decision around recognition. But I just say to you, we've got a lot of other partners throughout Europe, also throughout the region, that may or may not recognise as well. So, recognition is something for each country to determine when it makes sense for them. Our position's pretty long-standing. Since 1947, we just believe that a Palestine state and an Israel state, living side by side in peace and with security is actually really important. It's a question of when we do that and when is the best time to do that. And there's some serious considerations. And as I said, some partners have decided that now's the time. Other partners will decide it's not the time. But irrespective of what you think about the state recognition decision and position, that the real event is what's going to stop the human suffering on the ground today. And what stops that suffering, if you're serious about it, is actually Hamas, a terrorist organisation, needs to release hostages. They killed 1,200 innocent Israeli civilians and took 251 hostages and have refused to release the hostages. Equally, Israel has obligations to make sure it doesn't go in. We've argued strongly against Israel going into military action into Gaza City in particular. We've argued strongly and we've sanctioned extremist settlers on the West Bank in particular. We want unhindered humanitarian access flooding into Gaza. It's really important. And so, as I say, we're not pro-Israel or pro-Palestine, we're just pro-peace. And that's ultimately to remove that horrible humanitarian catastrophe that we see daily on our TV screens. That's what has to happen, irrespective of what decisions countries may make around state recognition.
Would we also send more aid? That would also help the suffering.
Well, we have been open to that, and one of the challenges has been actually how do you get the aid into Gaza, and that's why we've been calling on Israel to let the NGOs get back into Gaza so that we can actually flood the region with aid and assistance. And so there are some pathways to that, but of course we stay open to that.
So have we got like a war chest, sort of, not a war chest, but like sort of a whole lot of aid money set aside that we could send as and when aid is able to get into Gaza?
As you've seen us over the point of this conflict, we have been very comfortable to find ways to get aid into the region. We appreciate we're a small country, we're a long way away from it. Irrespective of that, we've been working, as you know, with traditional Red Cross, Red Crescent type organisations, UN World Food Programmes to get our aid through. But obviously that's been one of the real contentious points that we've been kept calling for, to say to Israel, you have to let unhindered humanitarian access and aid flood into Gaza. It's really quite critical. And so, we will continue to look at opportunities for obviously to helping as we can.
And on the Reserve Bank,
sorry?
What do you say to people who say the government's sort of dragging its heels in terms of making a decision?
Well, I just say to you, the key issue is how we get peace in the region. And what we've seen is endless military action, huge amounts of humanitarian suffering. And that will continue, irrespective of what countries decide to do around the recognition of a Palestinian state. So let's be clear about that. Nothing changes tomorrow when every country recognises a Palestinian state. You really have to deal with the conflict that's there. And it's deep and it's hard. And there's extremes on all sides of that conversation. But if you want peace and you want the humanitarian catastrophe to stop, Hamas, a terrorist organisation, needs to release hostages and Israel needs to honour its obligations. And both parties need to be able to work towards a ceasefire that then generates genuinely peace in the region, with a massive amount of reconstruction that will likely follow. So I just say that's the main event, let's be clear about it. As to when countries have or haven't or do or don't recognise the state, that's up to them to make those individual decisions. But the real event is actually making sure we can get peace on the ground to stop the suffering that's taking place. So I think we've been incredibly balanced. You've heard us partner with countries as a small country a long, long way away with very limited trade and investment with Israel or in the Middle East in general. We have partnered with countries to call on Israel to enable humanitarian access. We've called on Israel not to go into Gaza City with military action to make the suffering even worse. We've called on Hamas to release hostages. We'll continue to do that. But ultimately the parties in the region, the big regional players, need to find a way through it.
Has the new Reserve Bank Governor signed the contract, and when will they be announced?
We'll have more to say about that shortly.
Is it safe to say that they're not a New Zealander?
Again, we'll have more to say about that shortly.
Will it protect the independence of the Reserve Bank?
The Reserve Bank is an independent organisation and we continue to respect the independence of the Reserve Bank.
And did either of you take art history at high school?
No, you don't want me as your Pictionary partner, Amelia. I don't think that's one of my strong suits, to be honest. Dancing, good, but art history, not so good. Well, actually, I have done some doodles. I think doodles is what I'd call it.
Will you reinstate art history as a subject at high school?
The Ministry had provided me with advice around art history, and the fact of the matter is, last year in Level 2, less than 0.5% of students took it. We're talking about 251 students gaining 14 plus credits in Year 12 or Level 2 art history. It is a tiny amount, and the same in Level 3 or Year 13, 543 students gained 14 or more credits. Now, if you think about the visual arts, that's 5,000 and almost 10,000 respectively. So this is not about removing that knowledge, it's about taking the knowledge out of a subject that very few students are taking, and let's be clear, it's less than one per school, and taking it and putting it in other areas like visual design, where you've got thousands and thousands of kids taking it, putting it in art, putting it in classics, putting it in photography, so that so many more students have access to art history rather than in this subject.
But for those schools that do offer art history, I imagine that's a significant portion of those who are taking it, and that sort of sets them apart from schools. Why not allow them to offer art history for all those students who do want to take it and who find huge value in it?
There are hardly any students who are taking enough credits for it to be meaningful. And we had the same argument, under the previous government about Latin as well. And I know people wanted to retain Latin, but in the end, there were not enough students taking it. That is the case today. 251 students achieving 14 plus credits at Year 12, Level 2, across the country. It is we have to rewrite all of these curricula. We have to resource them. We have to provide professional learning and development. When 251 students are taking the subject, I think most New Zealanders will think that it's reasonable that we take that knowledge, it's not disappearing, and we put it into other subjects where thousands of children and students will be able to access the knowledge, and that's the Ministry's decision.
So what's the cost saving then for scrapping it?
You'll have to talk to the Ministry. Look, this is operational. It is their recommendation, and they have looked at it again. They've looked at everything, and they are not going to change their position on this. They've got all the right information, and as I say, we are taking that knowledge and putting it into other areas. It's like music history. Music history you learn through music, and art history you will be learning through classics, art, visual design, photography, painting, everything. So thousands and thousands of kids will be able to learn about art history in those subjects.
And so you're comfortable with this decision?
I'm very comfortable with this decision, and I know it's controversial, and I know there'll be thousands of people have taken it since I got an email from one lady said she did it in 1978, and I get that people really enjoy the subject, which is why we're taking the knowledge and putting it into a number of other different subjects so thousands of kids can do it.
So how many more students do you think will have an opportunity to learn about art history as a result of this?
It'll be thousands. And if you take just visual design, 5,500 kids last year, I shouldn't call them kids, students, 5,500 students gained 14 plus credits in visual design at level 12, and it was almost 10,000, 9,000 something for year 13. That's just one subject, that's just visual design, but when you add in painting and classics and art and photography and everything else, it will be thousands of students. So I want everyone to know that the knowledge is not being taken out, it's not disappearing, it's just shifting, because it's just, when less than 0.5% of students are taking a subject, less than one child per school on average, it's just not reasonable for us to provide all of these curricular areas. And this has allowed us space to offer other curriculum areas now, like journalism and communications and media and the politics, civics and philosophy and music technology. So there's a whole lot of other things coming on stream, but it wasn't reasonable when 251 students are taking it.
Prime Minister, cruise ship season started.
Yeah.
How do they factor into your strategy for big events and tourism?
Yeah, look, I mean, Minister Upson's done a great job actually working with the sector, and it's been really good to see we've got our first cruise ship in today, and it's a key part of our tourism proposition as we build back tourism. And it's really good. I mean, the cruise industry globally has often struggled in recent years, but it's really, I think we've got a fantastic cruise proposition, obviously, given the location of where we are in the world and the opportunity that we've got to move around the country in that way, and also link into Australia particularly as well. So, the fact is that people flying into New Zealand to start up a cruise here, people coming on the cruise ships here as part of a journey, part of an itinerary, spending money in the local economy, in the hotels and the bars and the attractions and the shops, is all really good things in driving economic activity. So, major events, $70 million worth of money, competitive money, with more broader criteria, going after big events that drive economic activity, cruise ships back in Auckland, with a new wharf being built that's come through fast track with the ports of Auckland, done in 6 months instead of 5 years under the old scheme as it would have been. All of that's designed to drive and pump up more economic activity.
Do you have a target for economic growth by the end of the year?
Well, I mean, you've seen economists say that they expect us to be growing around, I think the Westpac economists a couple of weeks ago were saying 2.4 for the next 2 years, and they say that will be faster than what Australia's growing. Our Treasury forecasts are at 2.7% over 4 years average over those 4 year periods, with 240,000 new jobs coming. We've been dealing with the biggest recession we've had for 35 years. We've dealt with the longest COVID hangover of any Western country, given we were the second stimulatory economy in the Western economies. And we've obviously been dealing with a loss of confidence and sentiment that came around uncertainty with respect to the Trump tariffs. So, we're now in a place where, yes, difficult April, May, June, no doubt about it, we all felt that. But in June, July, August, September, we're now growing again. As we go into Q4 towards the end of the year, we expect to be growing more strongly. I just give you one thought, is that 42% of New Zealand mortgage holders are about to refinance or refix their mortgage within the next 6 months. And the benefit of that is if you've got a $500,000 mortgage 25 years, you're getting about $330 back in your back pocket each fortnight. And just think about that, $660 a month to spend in the economy, or save or spend as you see fit. But that is money back into the economy that people actually get to drive economic activity with.
Don't only 30% of New Zealanders have mortgages?
Sorry?
Don't only 30%?
As I said, 40% of mortgage holders across New Zealand. Depends on, I appreciate not everyone owns a home in New Zealand, and that's why it's, we've got rent stable, we've got house prices, been pretty flat over the last wee while. But, certainly when you think about those OCR cuts that we talk about with the Reserve Bank lowering interest rates, then those being transmitted out into retail rates that actually lead to people refinancing their mortgages. Many are on short-term fixed arrangements with their mortgages with their banks, and when they refinance, that's what generates the huge savings for them.
ASB's investor confidence survey came out this morning. It had levels at the lowest since the pandemic. What would you say to investors to bring confidence?
I think the survey is a little misleading, because the survey is actually talking about, as I understand it, ASB customers and their propensity about their returns on their term deposits and stuff like that. And of course, interest rates are falling, so that's not unexpected. I think it was 50-50 as to where they sort of were. The bigger issue is actually proper investors, which are large pension funds from around the world that want to work with the government on major public infrastructure. We've had huge interest in that. You've seen that with the $1 billion from Brookfield partnered with Tainui and the Ruakura Super Hub. We have a lot of unsolicited bids for a lot of the public infrastructure we talked about at the Infrastructure Summit. So that's still going incredibly well. I think the second area, which Erica and I have spoken about before, is the Active Investor Visa Plus. Erica's just come back from the US last week, where we've had almost $2 billion worth of money come into the system since April 1. That is more than what we'd had in the previous years under the old administration. So there is people wanting to come and invest $5 million and $10 million in businesses here in New Zealand, and of course when they do that, that creates new jobs, it creates more export revenue. And then at a small firm level, what we've tried to do is through investment boost make it more attractive for someone to go buy that tractor, that computer, that CNC machine that they might need to upgrade their manufacturing plant and capital and equipment.
Can we have a final question?
Yes, sorry. Yep. Last question. All good? Okay, thanks so much. Appreciate it. Have a good day. Got your Kiwi pin on.
Yeah, I see.